Hi everyone, today's mini lesson is all about circles. So we're going to find the circumference and the area of a circle. First we need to talk about some basic definitions of a circle. So some important pieces that we want to note is that the diameter cuts right across the center point of a circle, going from one side of the circle to the other, cuts it in half. And the radius is halfway across, almost like you're cutting out a piece of pie. The radius is half the distance across the circle. Diameter would be the full distance. The circumference is actually a special name for the perimeter of your circle. It goes around the circle. And then area still has the same definition. Now your formulas, circumference can be written as diameter times pi, or it can be written as 2 times pi times r, which makes sense because it would be 2 of the radiuses or a single diameter. A single diameter is 2 radiuses. And then the area is pi times r squared. We're going to be using these a lot, but they are ones that you're going to need to memorize. So moving on, example 1 says finding the circumference and area of the following circles. So in the first one, we'll do circumference first. Circumference, it doesn't matter what formula you use, but since I'm noticing that I was given a radius, I'm going to write down 2 times pi times the radius since I was given radius. And radius was 4.5. 2 times 4.5 would be 9 pi. Now, this would be if your answer was, they wanted you to leave your answer in terms of pi. But if they wanted you to get an exact answer, which we will, you'll do 9 times 3.14. Pi, I guess I should write that on here, pi is approximately 3.14. That's what we're going to round it to. It does go on forever. So this would be 28.26. Circumference is simply a length, so it's just inches. Area is pi times radius squared. And since they gave us the radius, that works out nicely, 4.5 squared. So now I need to square the 4.5. So 4.5 times 4.5. So I have 20.25 pi. Now I need to multiply by pi, but you would stop there. Like let's say on the PSSAs they have the answers in terms of pi, then you would just stop right there. But we're going to go one step further and multiply by 3.14. So we have 63.59. I'm going to always round these to the nearest hundredth, and that will be in inches squared, since it's area. Now in the next example, they've given us the diameter. So for circumference, I'm going to use diameter times pi as my formula because it's more convenient since they've already given me the diameter. So it's 36 pi. And believe it or not, that would be your final answer for circumference if they asked you in terms of pi. But since it isn't right now, I'm going to multiply by 3.14, and I would get 113.04, and that's in feet. It's a length, because remember, circumference is just a fancier way of saying the perimeter. Now we're going to tackle area. Need a little more space. And for area, it's pi times the radius squared. Now your diameter and radius have an interesting relationship. If your diameter is 36 feet, radius is always half of that. So if you're given diameter, you just cut it in half, and you have radius. Or if you're given radius, you double it and have diameter. So our radius is going to be 18, and I determined that from cutting diameter in half. Now I'm going to square 18, 324 pi, and I'm going to multiply by pi, 1017.36, and it's feet squared because we're talking about literally how many square blocks would fit inside there. The area is squared. Let's move on to a word problem. Abigail is framing a circular picture. The photo has a diameter of 8 inches. So I know it's a circle. The diameter is 8 inches. She wants to add a gold rope to the frame. How much rope should she buy? Well, if we're going on a frame, the frame, like I'm not telling you if it's a circumference or an area, you kind of have to come up with that on your own. So if I'm going around the picture and it's a circle, around the outside would be basically your perimeter, but the fancy way of saying that is your circumference. And circumference we know has two formulas. You can either use diameter pi or 2 pi r. Well, in this case, they gave us diameter, so I might as well use the diameter formula, which would just be 8 pi. And what's crazy is, if this was the PSSAs, often they just have you leave it as in terms of pi. I'm going to multiply by 3.14, though, to get a precise answer. So I have 25.12 inches, and it's a length, so you do not need to square it. So she should buy, now if this was Abigail, she should probably buy 25.12 inches of rope, but she probably wants to buy a little bit more if she needs to cut some off. So probably like, 26 inches of rope would work. Now we're going to find the area of the shaded region. And we've tackled these sort of problems before. I think they're actually pretty fun. You just have to know which pieces to put where and if you're going to add or subtract. In the first problem, we have a circle and then inside a blank rectangle. So we actually want to subtract out that blank rectangle. I like to write down my pieces I'm subtracting and adding, and then write down my formula. This keeps me organized. The area of a circle is pi r squared. My rectangle, we should be very good at these by now, base times height. And then I fill in all my information. 12 feet is the diameter. So my radius should be half, 6. Base times height of my rectangle, the dimensions were 6 and 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and further solve. 6 squared is 36 pi. 6 times 3 is 18. Now, I'd love to put these together, but I can't. Since the first term has a pi and the second one doesn't, I'm going to have to solve with pi first. So 36 times 3.14. So I have 113.04 minus the 18. That's going to give me an area of 95.04 feet. An area is squared because you're literally finding out how many squares, 1 by 1 squares, fit inside an object. In the second picture, kind of things have changed, have flipped a little bit. My outside piece, if I'm determining just the shaded region, is going to be a rectangle, and then the blank one was the circle in this case. My rectangle, my formula is base times height. I'm going to go a little quicker because you should be very good at this by now. And then the area of a circle, pi r squared. The base times height of the rectangle is 60 by 30. That's easy. Now the circle we have to do a little bit more thinking about. It doesn't even look labeled at all. But if you notice, this line here, the 30 yards, lines up with, if I were to break it off and drag it across, it lines up with the diameter perfectly of the circle because the circle touches the rectangle on both sides. So it's also going to be 30, making your diameter 30 yards. And then your radius is going to be half of that, which would be 15. So it's going to be pi, and then your radius squared would be 15 squared. So I have 60 times 30, to conquer first, 1800, minus 15 times 15, 225 pi, and then I have to continue with the pi part, so now I have to multiply by pi here. So 706.5. Now I'm going to subtract the two, 1800, take away 706.5, 1093.5 yards squared.